15 years ago, we started Transition Garden. It's a way to use a garden to build community, to build additional strength of local control over what's going on in the outside world. Communities working more closely together, working on food production, which is important, of course, to everyone, and a way to really build that community empowerment.
Garden grows through the seasons that flow. Our garden grows, our garden grows.
What I'd like to tell you about now is preparation of garden beds in the spring. In this part of the transition garden, we have 14, 15 different raised beds, depending on how you count them. So we go through a process of getting them ready for the upcoming season. Some of it may have happened in the fall where we've added compost back then. Sometimes we add compost in the spring. It just depends on the work, when we get to it, that sort of thing. The soil is the foundation for everything you're going to do in the garden, and you really want to continually work on the health of your soil. Now, in this particular case, we've been adding compost regularly, lots of compost for probably, in this bed, I'm going to say 10 years, 8 to 10 years. When it started, it was a very sandy soil, and when we look at it now, I'll take it apart, brush some of the weeds here. It's got a good dark brown look to it. It's fairly friable, which means it's well drained. There's still a fair amount of sand in there, but it's got a good content of organic matter. Now, it's the organic matter that really builds the life, the community of living organisms in your soil. You want to build that up. Everybody, of course, notices earthworms. That's one of the most obvious ones. But there's hundreds and thousands of other things that live in a good, rich soil. Lots of bacteria, fungi. There's beneficial fungi called mycorrhizae that have a symbiotic relationship with plant roots. There's nematodes. There's all types of things living in a good, rich soil. And that builds the health of your plants. Not just the size and the nutrition content, but literally the health. They're able to fight off diseases, insect attacks, that sort of thing. That's how you do organic. It all starts with good soil. The first thing I like to do is measure the pH of the soil. pH is the acidity level, how acid a soil is, or how basic, how alkaline it is. So I have this handy dandy meter here. I'm just going to push it into the soil. It's got metal contacts on the outside, and so it's measuring the pH as we speak. And there's a little needle on top, a little gauge, and I wait about a minute or so and it will settle down into what the pH range is. Ideal pH, you want about 6.5 to 6.8 pH. So it's just slightly on the acidic side of being neutral. If soils become more acidic, you get down into the range of 5.5, they will start to more tightly hold nutrients, so that plants have a harder time pulling nutrients out of the soil in acidic soils. Okay. Now that range of 6.5 to 6.8 is for most vegetables, but some types of crops like it acidic, things like blueberries, for example, other types of berry crops, that type of thing. Some plants will tolerate acidic levels. Potatoes do very well in a more acidic soil. But generally speaking, you want it around 6.5. So I look here on my gauge and it tells me my soil pH is about 6.4. Not bad. So I have two different ways to adjust pH in a garden bed. One of them is to use limestone, crushed limestone. I prefer pelletized or what's called dolomitic limestone. It tends to be off-white. The reason is it has calcium in it as well. So it's lime but also calcium. So that's one way to raise the pH. In the gardening circles, they call it sweetening the soil. The other way to adjust pH is I've got a bucket here. These are wood ashes. Came out of our wood stove. Wood ashes are like lime. They will raise the pH. And they also, because it was all of the contents of wood before it was burned, it contains other nutrients as well, particularly phosphorus. So the last thing I will add to the beds is a good compost. And we're very fortunate here. We have a lot of horses close by in the neighborhood that's part of the community. And of course we like what horses do. Particularly the manure and the bedding, rich in urine, all of that, the manure and the urinized bedding, very rich in nitrogen. So this is that bedding and manure. It's a year later, completely broken down, beautiful compost. It really doesn't get any better than this. So this is very, very high in organic matter. It's high in what they call humus or hummus, not to be confused with what you put on your pita bread.
You keep your secrets underground. I've come now and then to stir and move around. Your city has no streets, just paths the worms dig as they eat and breathe. I went to see what's left of last year's work and found that you had turned to rich dark earth. I dug you up and brought you to my lane to mix you up with new to grow again.
Our greenhouse cooperative is an opportunity for two things: to pull in community, get a lot of neighbors involved, all gardeners, all wanting to grow transplants to take home to their gardens, and then also to be able to maximize the use of small greenhouses and produce a lot of plants. So with our greenhouse cooperative, we've got 25 households involved. Each of them have a garden. We've got 2 small greenhouses totaling about 250 square feet, which is not very big for the greenhouse world. And together, the families, we produce about 7,000 vegetable transplants every spring. The greenhouse cooperative starts in middle of March and ends in early June. We get together every other Sunday afternoon for 2-3 hours. The first couple of hours, people are working away, putting seeds in seed trays. They could be thinning seed trays after germination, transplanting into bigger pots, whatever work needs to be done. And then of course we save time to socialize because everybody loves getting together. They love talking about plants and their gardens. The Greenhouse Cooperative started when we just invited in a couple of friends to help put some seed trays together in the spring. And then very slowly it started to grow and expand. And now at this point we actually have a waiting list. It's grown by word of mouth, and we're constrained simply by the size of the greenhouses and by finding workspaces for everybody to sit down and do their work on that Sunday afternoon. So I can give you a quick lesson about seedlings. If you come in really close here, you can see here's 2 tomato plants, okay? And these big broad leaves are the seed leaves. That was what was already preformed within the seed. They're called cotyledons, or the seed leaves. And that's the very first leaves that come out of a newly germinated seed. So if you look at these trays here, we've got 1 tray of broccoli, 2 trays of broccoli actually. Same thing, you got a beautiful little pair of leaves here. Those are the cotyledons, or the seed leaves. That's the young plant's first ability to photosynthesize and start to produce its own food and its own way to start to grow and get bigger. Gets those first seed leaves out very quickly so that it can start photosynthesizing. Storing seeds properly, you're going to increase the lifespan of a seed dramatically. I mean, with some seeds, you should ideally be able to use seeds that's 5, even 10 years old if it was stored properly. 2 key things to keep in mind with storing seeds: cold and dry. When you think about life as a seed, you've been formed, you're all dried out. Here's some homegrown spinach seed. Okay, the goal in life for any seed is to absorb water so that it can start growing. So you don't want it to absorb water while you're storing it. You don't want it to even get wet unless it's going in the ground at that point in time. So inside each of these boxes now we've got a Ziploc bag, keeping the moisture out. And inside each Ziploc bag, there it is, silica gel. You find this in different types of equipment, electrical equipment. Sometimes you'll find a little package like this inside of a vitamin bottle, that type of thing. It's silica and it absorbs moisture. So it's always good to have some desiccant gel like this inside your box and inside your bag, keeping your seeds dry. Even when you're planting, a lot of seeds will come in a paper bag like this. So if I'm planting seeds and I just lay the paper bag down onto the soil, it's paper and it's going to start sucking up water from the wet soil. So now I've got a wet seed package. So it's always important to keep your seeds dry even when you're using a seed package, making sure you're not putting it down in a wet spot. Don't let that paper on the outside start to get wet, or it could ruin all the seeds that are in your package. The other thing that we do then is we label, when a seed package shows up in the mail, we label the year. So here now is some nice cucumber. We wrote down 16 on there in the corner. And we've got seed that goes back to 2009, 2008, that sort of thing. So that way you know what year your seed was when you bought it. And it also then, if we've got 4 or 5 packages of this particular type of cucumber, we know which seed was the oldest, which one to use first, that sort of thing. Some seed, when it starts to get older, very typically the percentage of germination will start to go down. What percentage of the seeds will actually germinate? So here, for example, is some chicory in 2011. So that now is 6-year-old chicory seed. Here we've got some fennel, and it's a combination of 2014 and 2011. We had some old 2011 seed and we mixed that in with 2014. So this fennel seed now is starting to get pretty old. So when we seed, put the seed into the trays, we'll compensate by adding extra seeds, because we know that they're not all going to germinate because it's starting to get old. So we'll overseed, if you will. We'll put maybe 2 in each cell, depending on how old the seed is. And then that way we know they're not all going to come up, and we'll get just about the right number to fill a tray. Okay, we're going to start planting this cold frame. It's still quite cold. It's early April, got down to 4 or 5 below last night. Good sunny day today, but it's a good time of the year. Still very early, still going to be a lot of frost coming, but it's the best time to get started with a cold frame. So with the cold frame, one thing that's interesting, just even before we get started, is if we come in close, you can see that there's a lot of weeds starting to germinate. And if you look really close, you can see a lot of small weed seeds that are just starting to pop up through the soil. That's good. We want to get all of that weed seed to germinate now so we can disc them all in under the soil and we won't have to bother with them later. So that's one of the advantages of putting the cold frame down early, warming the soil. You're going to get all your weeds to pop up and then you can get rid of them. So we're just going to rake them all in like this. That's going to take care of most of our weeds. Loosen it up a little bit with a spade, just a hand trowel. This is good, rich earth. And I like to use a butter knife to lift them out of these trays. And I kept stealing butter knives out of the kitchen. And at some point my wife got very upset with me because I kept stealing all the butter knives. So she went to the thrift shop and stocked me up on butter knives. So I now have garden butter knives. There you go. So it works beautifully. We can slip that butter knife down in on the side of a plug here, lift that out, and look at that. You got a beautiful transplant. There's 2 plants in the top there. You got roots all the way down. That's just ready to go into the ground. This is a cold hardy lettuce. It's going to take it down below 0, 1, 2, 3 degrees down below 0, be just fine. It shouldn't get much colder than that in here at this point because it is a cold frame. It's going to be covered with the covering, the glass. So I'm going to take this plug. I'm even going to tease these 2 apart now. There we go, that I've got both plants coming in different directions, and then very gently, there we go, I'm going to tease the roots apart. Look at that. See that? Then I one at a time make a little hole, put it down in there, and then I'm going to pinch it in. And leave a little bit of a depression around it. I'll give room maybe 6 inches for the next one. Leave a very small depression. That way when I water, water will accumulate and go down in there and keep them watered. So we've started our spring lettuce, just like that. Reach in here, I'll get another one. This is now the, it's called red oak leaf, very cold hardy lettuce. So I'm going to eventually fill this whole cold frame with a number of different crops. Okay, now I'm going to, right along the front, I'm going to take this tray out. And right along the front here, I'm going to plant a row of radishes. Now radishes, think of a radish as a 4 to 5 week crop. It's going to take 4 to 5 weeks. They're in and out. So I'm planning ahead. This entire bed, what we're doing right now is just the first spring crop. Spring lettuce, spring radishes. We're going to put in some spring turnips. They're all going to get harvested. They're all going to be out of here by the end of May, early June. We're going to refresh the bed with new compost, build it back up again, and then all the summer crops are going to go in here. So this is called successional planting. So I'm going to start with some radishes here. I'm keeping them in plastic. I want to keep my seed bags dry. And this is one of my favorites. One of these radish packages is now 8 years old, 2007. So, and they're still good because I've kept them stored properly. So there's some loose radish seeds in the bottom of the bag. They're kind of light brown and almost light orange colored, and they're slightly round. They're going to germinate very, very quickly, particularly when you've got warm soil like this. So I'm making a trough here with this trowel, just about maybe an inch deep. A light trough all the way down. There we go. Then I'm going to take some of this radish seed in my hand, and I'm just going to roll them off the edge of my finger using my thumb and just drop about 1 inch, give or take. Don't have to be too exact about it. So we're going to come back later when they're up out of the ground and we'll thin them out. So about 1 inch apart. And if I put in too many, that's fine too. We'll just do a little more thinning. So now I've seeded this row. And then I'm just going to come along. So I'm just going to brush it closed with my hand. So that trough is now closed in. Got the seeds buried about 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep. I don't want to go any deeper than that. Good warm soil. We're going to water it lightly, and they should be up out of the ground within a week to 10 days, and we'll be pulling radishes within about 3 to 4 weeks.